June 3rd, 1944. 2:10 hours. Arlington Hall Station, Virginia. Colonel Carter W. Clark sits at a metal desk inside a room that hums with fluorescent light and machine noise. The building around him is a converted girls' school. Its hallways now carry teletype paper instead of footsteps. Its classrooms now hold mathematicians instead of students. Outside, the Virginia night is warm and still. Inside, the machines do not stop. A fresh intercept summary lands on Clark's desk. It has come through the secure distribution channel from Bletchley Park, England. The message it describes was transmitted hours earlier through German military networks. It arrived in 5-letter cipher groups. It was decoded by Allied analysts before most of Clark's staff had eaten dinner. Clark reads it. The message describes the strategic positioning of German armored reserves along the Atlantic Wall. It references command estimates of probable Allied invasion corridors. It names Pas-de-Calais as the expected point of main Allied effort. It records German confidence in that prediction. The message is wrong about what is coming, and the Germans who wrote it have no idea that Clark is reading it. That is the problem. That is also the advantage. And as Clark turns to the next summary in the stack, the question running through every operational decision in this room is the same one it has been for 3 years. How much do you act on what you know before the enemy realizes you know it? 3 days from now, the largest amphibious invasion in history will cross the English Channel toward the beaches of Normandy. The Germans are expecting it somewhere else. Their own encrypted messages have just confirmed it, and the men in this room cannot tell anyone how they know. This is what winning the intelligence war looks like from the inside. Not triumph, constraint. The teletype machines keep running. The clock keeps moving. And across occupied Europe, the German military continues transmitting its most sensitive communications through a cipher system its commanders believe to be mathematically unbreakable. They have believed this for years. They are still wrong. To understand what Clark is reading that night, you have to go back to the machine itself. The Enigma cipher device entered German military service in the early 1930s. It is a portable electromechanical encryption system roughly the size of a typewriter. An operator types a plain text letter. The current passes through a plug board, through a series of rotating cipher rotors, reflects off a fixed plate, and returns through the rotors and plug board before lighting a lamp that displays the encrypted substitute letter. Each keystroke advances at least one rotor, changing the electrical pathway for the next letter. The result is a cipher that does not repeat. Press the same key twice, and the encrypted output will be 2 different letters. The number of possible rotor and plug board configurations runs into the hundreds of millions of trillions. German cryptographic doctrine holds that even with an intercepted message in hand, an enemy without the day's specific machine settings has no practical means of decryption. The German Army, Navy, and Air Force all use variants of the system. Traffic flows continuously. Orders, supply requests, submarine patrol assignments, artillery coordinates, troop transfer schedules. Everything moves through Enigma. Allied listening stations across Britain, Iceland, and the eastern United States intercept this traffic constantly. Hundreds of thousands of cipher groups per day. Mathematically dense, individually opaque, collectively enormous. And for years, that enormous volume is precisely the problem. Breaking any individual message requires knowing that day's machine settings. Those settings change every 24 hours at midnight. By the time analysts work backward from ciphertext to plaintext, the tactical information may already be obsolete. The German unit has already moved. The convoy route is already committed. The U-boat is already in position. Speed is the constraint. The settings window is closing before the intelligence can be used. At Bletchley Park, beginning in 1940 and accelerating through 1941 and into 1942, a group of analysts and mathematicians begin solving this constraint systematically. Their methods are mechanical and procedural. They exploit not the mathematics of the cipher itself, but the behavior of the humans operating it. German radio operators work under battlefield pressure. They work fatigued. They work under time constraints. And under pressure, operators develop habits that compress the astronomical range of possible configurations into something much smaller. They reuse key indicators. They pad messages with predictable phrases. They begin operational traffic with standard formatted headers that always contain the same words in the same positions. An encrypted message that begins with a standard weather report will always contain the word for weather in the same location. An encrypted coordination request will always contain the word for nothing to report in the opening position if there is nothing to report. These predictable plaintext fragments, matched against the cipher output, allow analysts to constrain the range of possible machine settings dramatically. The breakthrough is procedural before it is mathematical. The Germans are defeating themselves. At Arlington Hall, the U.S. Army's Signals Intelligence Service begins operating in parallel with Bletchley Park by 1942. American codebreakers take on portions of the traffic load that British analysts cannot process fast enough. Clark's office sits at the junction between the cryptanalytic operation and the command structure that needs to use what it produces. The intelligence product is given the code name Ultra, and by early 1943, Ultra is producing results faster than the Allied command structure can safely use them. 2:40 hours, Arlington Hall. The intercept summary stack is still growing. Clark moves to the Atlantic traffic section. The U-boat reports have been coming in with increasing clarity since late 1942. What they show is a German submarine force that believes it is operating invisibly. The German Navy's U-boat arm, commanded by Admiral Karl Dönitz, runs its submarine fleet through a system of encrypted radio coordination, unlike anything in any other service branch. Dönitz maintains direct radio contact with submarines at sea. He issues patrol assignments, reroutes boats around Allied defenses, coordinates Wolfpack attacks against convoy routes, and tracks fuel and ammunition states across the entire Atlantic deployment in real time. Every one of those communications moves through naval enigma. Every one of them is being intercepted. By spring 1943, Allied Naval Command has access to German submarine patrol line assignments within hours of their transmission. Convoys scheduled to transit corridors where Wolfpacks are waiting are rerouted. Ships that would have sailed into submarine ambushes instead pass through empty ocean. The Atlantic shifts. Convoy losses drop in areas where ultra-intelligence is applied. The pattern is not uniform because not all convoys receive rerouting and not all intelligence arrives in time, but the trajectory is clear. In May 1943, Allied air and naval forces begin hunting submarines with unprecedented precision. Escort carriers and long-range patrol aircraft operating from Newfoundland and Iceland intercept U-boats at refueling positions, at patrol stations, at the precise coordinates where encrypted traffic said they would be. U-boat commanders report being attacked in areas where no Allied forces should have known to look. Dönitz reads his loss reports with growing concern. In May 1943 alone, German submarine losses reach 41 boats. The operational loss rate becomes unsustainable. His analysts consider explanations. Improved Allied radar, better hydrophone arrays on escorts, reconnaissance aircraft with longer range, partisan intelligence networks reporting submarine departures from French ports. The one explanation that does not reach the top of the list is cipher compromise. Naval Enigma uses additional rotor configurations beyond the standard Army version. German cryptographic specialists have repeatedly reviewed the system's theoretical security. The mathematics remain sound. No investigation, surface level or otherwise, turns up evidence of Allied code-breaking capability. Dönitz adjusts his tactics. He pulls submarines out of the North Atlantic. He disperses patrol lines. He increases radio silence protocols. The problem is that adjusting tactics does not close the intelligence gap. The cipher is still running. The traffic is still being intercepted. The analysts at Bletchley Park and Arlington Hall are still decrypting. The German Navy is trying to outmaneuver a problem it has not correctly identified. And every adjustment Donitz makes, every redeployment, every new patrol assignment, arrives at Allied command within hours of being transmitted. The constraint is not Allied capability. The constraint is German assumption. Summer 1943. The Mediterranean. Allied forces have landed in Sicily in July and are pushing north. German command is now managing a two-front problem: the Soviet pressure in the east and the Allied advance pushing up through Italy. Reinforcement is the immediate priority. German armored and infantry divisions must move south into Italy to stabilize the defensive line before Allied forces can break through into the Po Valley. The reinforcement schedule is transmitted through Enigma. Rail transport assignments, divisional movement orders, timing windows for troop trains moving through the Alps and down the Italian peninsula. All of it encrypted, all of it intercepted, all of it decrypted. Allied Air Command now has a target list that was written by German command itself. Strategic bombing missions begin hitting rail junctions, marshalling yards, and bridge crossings along German reinforcement corridors. The timing is not random. Trains are destroyed at choke points before they arrive. Bridges are dropped on schedules that match German movement timetables. German division commanders report logistical disruption and unexplained delays. Armored units expected to arrive at the front within 2 days take a week. Infantry formations scheduled for defensive positions reach them after Allied forces have already exploited the gaps. Or the German explanation is consistent: Allied reconnaissance aircraft operating with unusual persistence, partisan sabotage of rail infrastructure, random mechanical breakdowns exacerbated by supply shortages. Not one field report questions whether the movement schedules themselves were compromised before the trains departed. At Arlington Hall, Clark reads summaries describing German command's frustration with the Italian logistics situation. He reads the same complaints he has been reading for months. The Germans are improving their field discipline, hardening routes, increasing security around transport nodes. They are solving for the symptom. They are not finding the cause. The volume of decrypted traffic continues rising. The constraint is no longer primarily analytical. The constraint is distribution. Clark's office must decide what gets passed to operational commanders, through what channel, with what cover story, to explain how Allied forces know where to look. Sometimes a reconnaissance overflight is manufactured. A patrol boat is dispatched to an area where it was already known a U-boat would be, so that when the submarine is attacked, there is an observable explanation for how it was found. Sometimes intelligence is acted on partially, not fully, so that German command does not see a pattern of implausible Allied foreknowledge. The intelligence system is working, but it is working under a pressure that has no operational parallel. Every correct action risks the entire structure. September 1943. The Italian front is stabilizing into contested lines. Inside German Army Group headquarters, a signal security review is underway. The review is routine. German cryptographic procedures are audited periodically. Operating procedures are checked for violations. Radio discipline is assessed. The review finds procedural lapses. Operators using predictable indicator settings. Messages with repetitive structural formatting. Key reuse in low-priority traffic. Corrective instructions are issued. Radio operators are reminded of proper key generation procedures. Standard message formats are modified to reduce predictability. Some minor adjustments to Enigma configuration protocols are made. And at Bletchley Park, the analysts notice the change. Decryption timelines for certain traffic categories extend. Some message types that were previously solvable within 2 to 3 hours now require 6 to 8. A small number of traffic intercepts from Army group signals cannot be solved within the operational window and are set aside. The reaction at Arlington Hall is contained but immediate. Clark receives a cable describing the procedural changes. The intelligence window has narrowed on certain channels. Not closed, but narrowed. This is the constraint that ultra-planners have feared from the beginning. Not a single decisive compromise. A slow drift toward better German security practice that gradually degrades the advantage one traffic category at a time. For 2 weeks, the impact is measurable. Then the German operators, working under operational pressure, begin slipping back into familiar habits. The formats simplify. The indicators repeat. The decryption timelines return to their previous range. What human discipline under sustained operational stress is a physical constraint. It yields to pressure. The intelligence window reopens, but it has demonstrated that it can close. Early 1944. The focus shifts entirely to Western Europe. German Enigma traffic from Army Group B, covering the Atlantic Wall defenses, has been producing detailed intelligence on coastal fortifications, defensive unit positioning, and command assumptions about Allied invasion intentions. The traffic is consistent. German High Command expects the main Allied invasion to come at Pas-de-Calais. The reasoning appears in multiple independent message channels. The narrowest crossing from England, the shortest approach to Germany itself, the most direct logistical route for an Allied force intending to push into the Ruhr industrial heartland. German armored reserves, including panzer divisions held as a strategic counterattack force, are positioned in anticipation of this assumption. Defensive engineering resources are concentrated along the Calais coastline. Garrison units are deployed more densely in the Pas-de-Calais sector than anywhere else along the wall. The German prediction is systematic and internally consistent. It is also wrong. Allied planners have chosen Normandy, the beaches of the Calvados coast, farther west, less defended, less expected. The crossing is longer. The approach to Germany from Normandy is less direct, but the defensive density is lower, the surprise is achievable, and the assumption German command has embedded in its own planning works entirely in the Allied favor. And now Ultra is confirming in real time that the German army believes its own prediction. Clark is reading German command's confidence in its own strategic miscalculation at 2:10 on the morning of June 3, 1944. 3 days from invasion. The armored reserves are still positioned for Calais. 2:55 hours. Arlington Hall. The intercept stack has been reduced by half. Clark moves to the distribution section. His responsibility now is not analysis. It is containment. Every piece of ultra-intelligence that reaches a field commander creates a security obligation. The commander must act on the intelligence without revealing that he has it. If an armored division is known to be moving through a specific valley at a specific time, and Allied forces are waiting in that valley, and the ambush succeeds perfectly, the question that follows is, how did they know? The answer provided to field commanders is always a sanitized cover, reconnaissance reported movement, a resistance contact forwarded a tip, a prisoner stated the route during interrogation. The cover story must be credible on its own, independent of the intelligence that actually drove the decision. For smaller operations, this is manageable. For an operation the scale of Overlord, the security requirement becomes structural. Every senior Allied commander with access to ultra summaries has signed a formal secrecy obligation. The intelligence cannot be discussed by telephone. It cannot be referenced in written operational orders by source. It cannot be disclosed to officers below a strict clearance threshold, regardless of operational need. This creates a command friction that runs in the opposite direction from normal military procedure. Normally, you give your subordinate commanders as much information as possible so that they can exercise initiative. Under ultra-discipline, you give them only what they need to execute their assigned task, and you do not explain why you are certain about information that should not be certain. Some commanders resist. They want to know why their intelligence summaries contain such precise information about enemy dispositions when official reconnaissance cannot account for it. The explanations they receive are incomplete by design. The constraint is invisible to them, but it shapes every briefing they receive. April 1944, 6 weeks before D-Day. German Enigma traffic reveals a significant development in the Allied deception campaign. A message originating from German intelligence analysts in France references the presence of a large Allied force formation in southeastern England, identified as the 1st United States Army Group, or FUSAG, apparently preparing for operations opposite Pas-de-Calais. The message treats this formation as confirmed. FUSAG does not exist as a fighting force. It is a phantom, a deception construction built from fake radio traffic, false signals, fictitious unit designations, and inflated order of battle assessments fed through German intelligence channels. Its nominal command is attributed to General George S. Patton, a name German intelligence associates with aggressive operational capability. The deception program known as Operation Fortitude has been running for months. Its goal is to reinforce German assumptions about Calais without revealing the Normandy plan. Now, the encrypted message confirms that German command is treating FUSAG as real. At Arlington Hall, the intercept lands in Clark's summary stack, with an importance that requires immediate upward distribution. German command is not merely predicting Calais. It is predicting Calais because Allied deception has actively fed that prediction into German intelligence assessments, and the Germans have incorporated it into their own encrypted internal traffic, which the Allies are now reading back. The loop is complete. The Allies have shaped the German assumption. They can now monitor whether that assumption holds. And every intercepted German message repeating the Calais prediction is confirmation that the deception is working. So time pressure now operates at 2 levels simultaneously. The invasion clock is running down, and every day that passes without discovery of either the Enigma compromise or the Fortitude deception is a day the strategic advantage survives. The window is narrowing, but it is still open. May 1944, 4 weeks before D-Day. German naval Enigma traffic shows increased U-boat activity in the English Channel and Bay of Biscay. Dönitz has repositioned submarines in anticipation of possible Allied naval movements associated with the expected invasion. The deployments are transmitted in encrypted patrol assignments. They are intercepted and decoded. Allied Naval Command adjusts channel patrol corridors. Mine-sweeping operations scheduled for pre-invasion lane clearance are timed to avoid submarine contact windows identified through Ultra. The constraint here is physical. The channel is narrow. German submarines operating in shallow water are more vulnerable to air attack, but also more threatening to invasion shipping. A successful torpedo attack on troop transports during the crossing would cause casualties the Allies cannot easily absorb in the opening hours. 68 separate submarine position reports are processed through the Ultra distribution chain between May 1st and June 5th, 1944. Each report shapes convoy routing, escort assignments, and air patrol schedules. German submarine commanders operating in the Channel during this period report inconsistent contact with Allied shipping. Routes that should bring invasion traffic through their patrol zones produce no targets. Escort patterns appear to anticipate submarine positions. The explanations submitted to Dönitz reference Allied air density and improved detection equipment. The actual explanation is still running through encrypted channels at Arlington Hall. May the 28th, 1944, 9 days before D-Day. A German Enigma message from Army Group B in France reports that field reconnaissance has identified increased shipping concentrations in southern English ports. Aerial photography has confirmed unusual vehicle density in staging areas across Kent and Sussex. The report concludes that an Allied operation is imminent. The likely objective, the report states, is the Pas-de-Calais coast. The message reaches Berlin. It reaches Clark. The German army is looking at the correct evidence and reaching the wrong conclusion. The shipping concentrations are real. The vehicle density is real. But the Army Group B assessment, nor filtering its observation through its existing strategic assumption, interprets what it sees as confirmation of the Calais plan. The deception is holding. The armoured reserves are still positioned northeast of Paris, and the beaches at Normandy are not yet defended to the level they would be if German command had revised its prediction. 9 days remain. June 3rd, 1944. 3:15 hours. Arlington Hall. Clark completes the intercept summary review. He initiates the distribution package for the overnight traffic relevant to Overlord planning. The package moves through secure teletype to SHAEF, the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, at Bushy Park near London. The package contains intercept summaries from 14 separate German command message categories. It includes updated confirmation that German armoured reserve positioning has not changed. It includes evidence that German command has received no information suggesting a compromise of its cipher security. It includes a summary of German meteorological assessments indicating that German command expects poor channel weather to delay any Allied operation by at least several days. The last point is significant. Allied meteorologists and German meteorologists are reading the same weather system moving across the North Atlantic. They are reaching different conclusions about its timing and severity. Allied forecasters, with access to weather station data from the Western Atlantic that German meteorologists cannot reach due to Allied control of the sea lanes, see a narrow window of acceptable conditions on June 5th through 6th. German forecasters, or working from incomplete data, do not see that window. German command will not be at full alert when the invasion crosses the channel. Clark forwards the summary and records the transmission time. He does not know every detail of what will happen in 3 days. He knows what the German army thinks will happen, and he knows the German army is wrong. That gap is the whole war. June 5th, 1944. 2300 hours. The first Allied airborne units are crossing the Channel. C-47 transport aircraft carrying paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions are over the Normandy Peninsula. At the same time, British and Canadian airborne forces are approaching landing zones east of the Orne River. German radar installations along the coast are detecting aircraft movement. Warning traffic begins moving through Enigma networks. At Bletchley Park and Arlington Hall, the intercept stations are at maximum staffing. Every German signal originating from 7th Army Headquarters, from Army Group B Command, from the Naval Coastal Defense Network, and from Luftwaffe Night Fighter Control is being captured and processed. The first warning messages from German coastal observers reach Army Group B at approximately 100 hours. They report parachute landings in the Cotentin Peninsula. The initial assessments characterize the drops as scattered and possibly representing a commando raid rather than a major airborne operation. The assessment is transmitted through Enigma. It is wrong about the scale. It is right that the drops are scattered, because wind and navigation errors have dispersed the paratroopers across a wide area. But the dispersal, which is a tactical problem for the Allied airborne divisions, is simultaneously being read by German command as evidence that this is not a full-scale invasion. The confusion is physical and immediate. It is also being decoded in near real time by Allied intelligence. June 6, 1944. 1:30 hours. German 7th Army Headquarters transmits an urgent message to Army Group B. Naval observers report a large fleet formation approaching the Normandy coast. The message describes an unprecedented concentration of Allied naval vessels. Artillery flashes visible on the horizon. No indication yet of landing craft. The message is intercepted. At the same moment, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, who commands Army Group B, is not at his headquarters. He has traveled to Germany to visit his family and to meet with Hitler. He left on June 4th, due after German meteorological assessments indicated no imminent invasion window. The command gap created by his absence is physical and consequential. His chief of staff receives the naval report. He reaches Rommel by telephone. Rommel begins preparations to return immediately. The time between a tactical alarm and the commanding general's return to his headquarters is measured in hours. Those hours will not return. June 6th, 1944. 5:30 hours. H hour minus 30 minutes. Naval bombardment has been underway for more than an hour. The Normandy beaches are under fire from Allied battleships, cruisers, and destroyers positioned offshore. German encrypted traffic from the coastal defense sector is reporting in detail. Bunkers along the beach sectors are sustaining fire. Communication lines between forward positions and regimental headquarters are being cut by naval shells. Field telephone wire laid along the coastal bluffs is being destroyed faster than it can be repaired. One communications breakdown is now adding to another. The telephone network is failing. Radio traffic must substitute. More messages are moving through Enigma. The volume of intercepted traffic is spiking. At Bletchley Park, the processing load is at the highest level of the war. German 7th Army is asking Army Group B for authorization to release armored reserves. Army Group B is awaiting confirmation from higher command before authorizing movement of the panzer divisions held under OKW control, the supreme command of the Wehrmacht, which reports directly to Hitler. The Armored Reserve Authorization Protocol is a pre-existing constraint built into German command structure. Hitler has previously ordered that strategic panzer reserves cannot be committed without his personal approval or OKW authorization. Waking Hitler in the early morning hours to request authorization is not done lightly by his staff. The panzer divisions are fueled, they are positioned, they are ready. They are waiting for a telephone call that nobody will make for hours. June 6th, 1944. 6:30 hours. The landings are underway. Allied troops are crossing the beaches at Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. Omaha is the most severely contested. German defensive positions on the bluffs above the beach are intact. Preliminary bombing missed most of the fortified positions. The first waves are taking heavy casualties from enfilading machine gun fire and mortar bombardment. At Utah, resistance is lighter. The landing has been displaced by current, putting troops down in a less defended sector than planned. The displacement, a navigational error, has produced a tactical advantage. German encrypted traffic from the Omaha sector describes the beach defenders holding their positions. German traffic from the Utah sector describes confusion about the scope of the landing. Neither sector is yet calling for armored counterattack reinforcement. The beach positions are engaged with the immediate tactical problem. The panzer divisions remain in their assembly areas. June 6th, 1944. 900 hours. Army Group B headquarters transmits a situation assessment to OKW in Berlin. The message describes Allied landings across a broad front in Normandy. It requests authorization to commit armored reserves to counterattack before Allied beachheads can consolidate. The message moves through Enigma. It is intercepted. At Chez AIF, the intelligence staff processing ultra-summaries reads the German command assessment in near real time. The message shows that Army Group B has correctly identified the scale of the invasion. It is requesting what it needs to respond effectively. The critical variable is how quickly OKW responds to that request. Hitler's headquarters receives the Army Group B assessment at approximately 9:30. Staff officers reviewing the situation consider whether the Normandy landings represent the main Allied invasion or a diversion preceding the expected Calais assault. The Fortitude deception is still active. Fusag is still nominally positioned in southeastern England. German intelligence has not yet been given any signal indicating that Fortitude is a fiction. The staff assessment in Berlin leans toward caution. Committing armored reserves against what might be a diversionary attack while leaving Calais weakened is strategically dangerous. The authorization is delayed. June 6, 1944. 1200 hours. Allied forces are still fighting on the beaches, but are beginning to push inland at several points. Utah is moving. British and Canadian sectors are establishing depth. Omaha is still under fire, but the momentum of the landing is not reversing. German armor has not counterattacked in mass. Intercepted German traffic shows fragmented responses. Individual armor units are being committed in battalion and regimental strength rather than divisional concentration. They are attacking against Allied forces already establishing defensive positions rather than against exposed troops in the surf. The physics of beachhead defense are shifting. An armored counterattack against troops still in the water is devastatingly effective. An armored counterattack against troops dug in on a beachhead backed by naval gunfire support is costly and unlikely to succeed. The German armor, delayed by command authorization constraints, is now arriving at the wrong phase of the battle. At 1400 hours, Ultra intercepts show OKW is releasing 2 panzer divisions for movement toward Normandy. The timing is measurable. The authorization has come approximately 6 to 8 hours after Army Group B's initial request. In those hours, 5 Allied divisions have landed. Engineer units have begun clearing beach obstacles. Supply dumps are being established ashore. Artillery is being unloaded. The beach is no longer a beach. It is a bridgehead. June 7, 1944. Morning. German encrypted traffic from the previous night and early morning shows the internal pressure building inside Army Group B. Rommel has returned to his headquarters. His situation reports to OKW describe the Allied buildup as moving faster than defensive resources can match. He requests additional armored units. He requests Luftwaffe support. He describes the threat from Allied naval gunfire as preventing daylight counterattack movement. The Luftwaffe response to the Normandy landings has been minimal. Allied air superiority over the Channel and over the Normandy battlefield is not a close contest. German aircraft attempting to attack the invasion fleet face a volume of Allied fighter cover that makes sustained operations unsustainable. German armored columns moving toward the front in daylight are being attacked by Allied tactical air power. Movement is possible only at night, under cloud cover, through secondary routes. Each constraint slows the concentration of force that would be required to compress and eliminate the beachheads. Intercepted messages record tank unit commanders reporting losses to air attack before reaching the front. Supply convoys are being destroyed on the road. Fuel shortages are developing as logistics routes are interdicted from the air. The mechanical unraveling is sequential and documented. Each lost tank, each destroyed supply convoy, each delayed unit arrival is recorded in German command traffic, encrypted, transmitted, and decoded. The operational window for eliminating the Normandy beachheads is closing one intercept at a time. June 8, 1944. German High Command transmits an assessment through Enigma that will be read at Arlington Hall within hours. The assessment acknowledges the scale of the Normandy landings. It notes the difficulty of counterattack operations under Allied air superiority. It expresses continued concern about the forces concentrated in southeastern England under Patton's command. The Calais assumption is still present. German command is managing Normandy as a serious threat, while simultaneously holding forces back for a Calais contingency that will never come. The deception is still working on day 2. The armored reserve northeast of Paris is still positioned for the wrong invasion. Ultra has confirmed it. The Allied beachheads are expanding. June 12, 1944. 6 days after D-Day, the 5 Allied beachheads have been linked into a continuous front. The lodgment in Normandy now spans roughly 80 kilometers of coastline with varying depth inland. German counterattack efforts have produced local successes, but no operational result. The panzer divisions committed to Normandy are being consumed in attrition fighting rather than decisive counterattack. Losses are significant. Replacements are not arriving at matching rates. Intercepted German communications from this period show escalating resource pressure across Army Group B. Ammunition consumption is running ahead of resupply. Fuel shortages are constraining armored operations to limited sectors. The continuous Allied naval and air bombardment is degrading command infrastructure. Headquarters buildings hit, telephone exchanges destroyed, ammunition dumps exploding. Each message that German command transmits describing these problems moves through Enigma. Each is intercepted. Each arrives at Allied command confirming that the German defensive situation is deteriorating in the ways Allied planning predicted. And German command, reading its own situation reports, remains uncertain whether the forces it is losing in Normandy are the forces it should be committing, or whether it is still holding back resources needed for a Calais response. The deception is not merely delaying German armor, it is distorting German command decision-making at the strategic level throughout the critical window. June 15, 1944. 9 days after D-Day, Hitler releases additional panzer divisions for Normandy. The decision comes too late to change the operational balance. The Allied lodgment is now deep enough that incoming armor must fight through established defensive positions, under air attack, over road networks being destroyed faster than they can be repaired. Rommel's situation reports to OKW during this period, transmitted through Enigma, are among the most operationally significant intercepts of the campaign. They describe in precise terms the deterioration of German counterattack capability, where they enumerate the losses, the fuel shortages, the communications disruptions, the effect of naval gunfire on armored unit cohesion when they approach the front. At Arlington Hall, Clark is reading the German army's own account of why it cannot win the battle it is fighting. The strategic window that existed on June 6th before dawn, when the beaches were still contested and the armored reserves were still intact, has closed. It will not reopen. The scale of what was accomplished across the preceding 3 years is not immediately visible from any single moment. Between 1941 and 1945, ultra-intelligence influenced military operations across the Atlantic, North Africa, the Mediterranean, Italy, and Western Europe. The intelligence pipeline produced by British and American codebreakers shaped convoy routing, bombing target selection, amphibious landing planning, and strategic deception on a scale no previous intelligence operation had approached. In the Atlantic, intercepts of German naval Enigma traffic allowed Allied Naval Command to route convoys around submarine concentrations, reducing shipping losses during critical periods, and maintaining the supply bridge between North America and Britain that sustained the entire European war effort. Without those convoys, the buildup of American forces and material in Britain required for Overlord could not have proceeded at the necessary rate. In North Africa, ultra-intercepts of German and Italian supply convoy traffic allowed Allied air and naval forces to interdict Axis shipping with precision that could not be explained by conventional reconnaissance. German and Italian forces in Tunisia in 1943 were fighting with fuel and ammunition shortages that intelligence-guided interdiction had created. In the Mediterranean, intercepts guided the timing and targeting of Allied operations from Sicily through the Italian mainland, enabling planners to exploit German reinforcement windows and defensive gaps that standard reconnaissance could not reliably identify. And across Western Europe, from the first planning discussions about Overlord through the Normandy campaign, and into the breakout operations of summer 1944, Ultra provided the foundational intelligence that made strategic deception operationally coherent. The deception worked not because Allied planners were simply clever. It worked because they could read German reactions to their deception operations in real time and adjust accordingly. That they could confirm when German command was accepting false information. They could monitor when German assumption was wavering and reinforce it through additional deception channels. This is the capability that made the Fortitude deception campaign uniquely effective. Not just that the Germans believed the wrong thing, but that the Allies could confirm, through encrypted German internal communications, that the Germans believed the wrong thing, and that the belief was holding. German command never accepted that Enigma had been compromised during the war. Post-war investigations conducted by German military and intelligence officers consistently attributed Allied operational successes to improved radar technology, aggressive reconnaissance operations, espionage by resistance networks, and battlefield intelligence derived from prisoner interrogations. The mathematics of Enigma remained theoretically sound. What the investigations missed was the operational gap between theoretical security and practical implementation under sustained combat conditions. German radio operators working under pressure, across thousands of stations simultaneously, over years of continuous operation, produced the procedural vulnerabilities that Bletchley Park and Arlington Hall systematically exploited. The cipher was not broken in a single moment of mathematical genius. It was worn down through methodical analysis of human behavioral patterns under physical and operational stress. The story of how that analysis worked and what it produced remained classified for decades after the war. The British government maintained secrecy over wartime intelligence sources well into the 1970s. American wartime intelligence records followed a similar declassification timeline. The commanders who made operational decisions based on Ultra could not publicly explain the intelligence basis for those decisions. The historians who wrote the initial post-war analyses of the Normandy campaign were working without access to the records that would have explained command choices that otherwise appeared inexplicably well-informed. The full picture emerged slowly, across decades, as archives opened and participants became free to speak. Karl Dönitz, in his post-war assessments and memoir, attributed the collapse of the U-boat campaign to Allied technological advances. He did not accept that his encrypted communications had been read. He maintained the position consistently until his death in 1980. The submarine commanders who survived the Atlantic campaign understood operationally that something had changed in Allied detection and response capability. Many suspected radar. Some suspected aerial reconnaissance coordination. The operational experience of being found in positions that should have been unknown was real and documented. The explanation remained elusive. German army officers who survived the Normandy campaign debated for decades why the armored reserves had not been released faster on June 6. The command authorization dispute, the Hitler approval requirement, the hesitation driven by Calais concerns were visible to them as operational failures. What was not visible to them was that the hesitation had been structurally reinforced by a deception campaign whose success had been monitored in real time through German encrypted traffic. They understood the failure. They did not understand the mechanism. The machines were portable. That was a design requirement. German field units needed a cipher system that could move with them, operate in vehicles, in command posts, in submarines, in aircraft communications stations. The Enigma met that requirement. It was robust, practical, and widely trusted. The trust was the problem. A system trusted absolutely is a system whose users stop questioning whether it is performing as expected. All German radio operators who had been told the cipher was mathematically unbreakable did not approach their work with the suspicion that their habits might be creating vulnerabilities. They were operating a tool declared secure by authority. The doctrine was settled. At Bletchley Park and Arlington Hall, analysts approached the same traffic with the assumption that human behavior under pressure would create patterns that mathematical formalism could not prevent. That assumption was correct. The gap between a theoretically secure system and a practically vulnerable one is filled with fatigue, routine, deadline pressure, and the small compromises that accumulate across years of continuous operation. German cryptographic doctrine had designed for the former. Allied cryptanalysis was exploiting the latter. The total Allied shipping protected by ultra-guided convoy routing across the Atlantic from 1941 through 1944 represents a logistical margin that is difficult to separate from the overall war outcome. The men and materiel that crossed the Atlantic in those convoys built and supplied the armies that invaded North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and Normandy. Historians who have examined the question estimate, with appropriate caution, that successful code-breaking shortened the European war by 1 to 2 years. That estimate carries significant uncertainty because counterfactual historical analysis is inherently speculative. What is not speculative is the documented operational effect. Reduced shipping losses, disrupted reinforcement schedules, successful strategic deception, and command delays during the most critical hours of the Normandy campaign. The consequences were measured in ships that arrived, in divisions that did not, in armored reserves that waited in the wrong location while beachheads consolidated. June 6, 1944. 2200 hours. Arlington Hall. The operations room has been running at maximum capacity for more than 18 hours. Clark is reviewing the final intercept summaries of the day. German command traffic from the previous 24 hours has been processed, distributed, and acted on across multiple theaters simultaneously. The summaries confirm what the operational reports already indicate. The Normandy beachheads are holding. German armored response is fragmented and delayed. The deception regarding Calais is intact. German command is still managing Normandy as a potentially diversionary operation. The window that existed before dawn, the window in which German armor might have reached the beaches in time to contest the landings, has closed. It closed in hours. The hours it took for OKW to authorize panzer movement. The hours during which German commanders waited for confirmation of invasion scale. The hours created by Rommel's absence. The hours created by the Calais deception, holding long enough to prevent immediate mass counterattack. Each of those hours was shaped by information that German command transmitted through Enigma, which was decoded and distributed to Allied planners, who used it to confirm that the German assumption was exactly what they needed it to be, and was holding exactly as long as it needed to hold. But Clark does not know the final casualty figures. He does not know the full operational result. He knows what the intercepts confirm. The machines the Germans trusted most have been working against them for years. The messages they believed were invisible have been shaping every campaign in which they have fought. The war has not ended, but the door that existed before June 6th has closed. The armored reserves did not come in time. The beaches held. The bridgehead expanded. The deception survived. And somewhere in a German command post, encrypted traffic is moving through an Enigma machine toward a listening station where it will be recorded, intercepted, and decoded. The process that began years before, in converted school buildings and requisitioned country houses, with mathematicians and linguists working against clock and cipher, is still running. It will run until the war ends. The Germans will not know it ran. That is the whole of it.